Welcome back to Overtime. Bitcoin moving lower today. Cathie Wood's ARK Next Generation Internet ETF selling its more than 2 million shares of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, but buying more than 4 million shares of the ProShares Bitcoin Strategy ETF. So here to discuss that move and the outlook for crypto is CNBC.com's Tanaya Macheel. Tanaya, it's great to have you here on set.
Nice to be here. Thanks, Morgan.
So I guess let's start with the positioning we've seen from Wood and whether we're seeing similar types of positioning or at least anticipation of a spot Bitcoin ETF from investors ahead of what could be as soon as next month an approval.
Yeah, it's getting really interesting heading into January 10th, which is the deadline, at least for ARK's application with 21 shares. So the SEC by then needs to either reject or approve it. I spoke with Cathie Wood just a couple days ago for Crypto World about this because that actually was the remainder of the GBTC shares in that fund, and she has been offloading for several weeks. So she told me, she was pretty plain about this. She said this is plain portfolio management. The price of Bitcoin has been rising, and we do always take profits. However, as you sort of alluded to, it is interesting, should she get the approval, and it is very likely that if one issuer gets approval, several will also get approval. So that would make GBTC a competitor. And I, would expect that should these issuers get approval, that ARK's Bitcoin ETF would become the main Bitcoin vehicle for her other funds as well.
Okay, so one to watch there. Bitcoin's just had an incredible year, 150% plus gains this year, despite some of the controversies that have happened, some of the company implosions, or at least leadership changes that have happened. There's an expectation that that could continue next year as well. How much of that is tied to ETF approvals? How much of that is other factors that are at play? Assuming it happens.
Yeah, well, yeah, there is entirely the possibility that there could be an ETF rejection, although it is, I think broad consensus is that is not likely. The Bitcoin ETF is a big thing. Things have really intensified. You said Bitcoin up 150 this year. It's up 57% just over the last 6 months, which is sort of the start when BlackRock came out and said, we want to do this Bitcoin ETF. And things have just been building and building from there, up 11% just for the month. It is the whole second half of the year really has been about the ETF story. It is expected to be the biggest catalyst next year, and that's just the start of it, because just a couple of months later, we're going to have the Bitcoin halving, which historically drives big gains, and then we're also watching the rate environment, expecting to maybe see some cuts next year. We know that rate hikes they have been hurtful to Bitcoin over the last couple of years. So the setup is really strong. There are some concerns, though. It is feeling a little overheated. CryptoQuant has data out today showing that the market is a little bit overheated. They think it is possible that Bitcoin could correct to about 32,000, which is the short-term holders' realized gain. The price has just been climbing and climbing. So all of these investors, short-term investors and miners, are sitting on these unrealized profits. And, I think though, also, it should be pointed out that even if there is a short-term pullback, most investors agree that does not really take away from the bull case, which is that if there is an ETF next year, it is going to invite in all of these institutional investors that were curious but have been sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah. And of course, we've seen the Bitcoin mining stocks. Most of them are very, very small, but they have had huge gains in anticipation of all of this year as well. The whole universe, it would seem like. Yeah,
even the big ones. Clean Spark and Iris Energy up more than 500%. And then we're looking at Riot and Marathon up 416%, 720%. And, that's going to be driven by the price a lot.
Okay. Tanaya Macheel, thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Morgan.